Lair is iconic. Lair represents everything that can go wrong in the production of a game with genuine potential. Lair should be good, but it is not. Lair is a very interesting game. Lair came stumbling out of the gate with a bolt hole already straight through its foot. You'd think that with an 8-month delay after originally being slated as a launch title would give the developers enough of a chance to iron out any last-minute details. However, Lair's problems were far much deeper than just a lack of time. A little thing known as developer's pride had already doomed this title to failure. The intentions behind Lair were honest, ambitious even. The game was set to cover new ground. Despite all the hype plastered beneath the Nintendo Wii, people often forget that the 6-axis controller on the PS3 contains motion sensing as well, that many of the theoretically groundbreaking games on Nintendo's system could easily be shoehorned onto Sony's Goliath. The guys at Factor 5, Lair's development team, wanted to show the world that the PS3 could contend. Screw playing a casual game of baseball or tennis. Over here on our turf, you can not only fly a dragon that tears shit apart, you can also become it. With the original shipped copy of Lair, you could only steer your dragon with motion sensing. And it sucked. This generation of video games has been rather amusing, watching every developer dive headfirst into the entire motion sensing phenomenon. Because it exists, and because the concept tested positive in a few nursing homes, every game had to have it. And then we realized that maybe we didn't like motion sensing so much after all. Sure, it's great in our casual titles when we try to put a smile on the old man's face as he pretends to play golf, but more often than not, it hardly belongs in our mainstay action titles. Perhaps its limited use worked in Mario Galaxy and No More Heroes, but as everyone seems to slowly be figuring out, as classic controller support grows more and more, motion sensing is not quite all it's cracked up to be. So what does this all have to do with Lair? The truth is that Factor 5 was already familiar with this. They knew that from their focus testing that gamers in general did not care for these motion sensing controls. Analog control was even used in early builds of the game, but because Factor 5 had this narrow vision on how Lair should be experienced, the entire project failed. A patch was eventually released online to add analog controls, but the very theme of developer pride and narrow vision was sprinkled throughout the entire production. Motion control was just the most prolific issue, but it certainly wasn't the only one. Another specific example would be the constant use of escort missions and protection missions. It's well known these days that no one really likes them, that their continued existence usually stems from some sort of necessity in the game's storyline. Good developers know to use them sparingly, if at all, and to make sure that the gamer knows specifically how to avoid losing because the stupid AI marched straight in front of a bullet. Lair doesn't do this. Lair is ambitious as it details an entire war with you fighting on the forefront, but then it kicks you square in the balls by thrusting you into the middle of these missions before you even have the chance to get a hang of the controls. It's another example of how Lair sacrifices quality in order to tell its theatrical story. Lair is truly a hardcore gamer's game. It's the kind of game where you'll be pressing 5 buttons at once as you wish you had yet another thumb. Unlike many modern day sissies out there, I'm perfectly fine with this. I enjoy a good game where you need to conquer a learning curve in order to achieve maximum control. I enjoy aerial combat games as well, and I was looking forward to how Factor 5's take on the genre with the dragons panned out. However, even when I learned how to play this game, when I was able to naturally dial into the gamepad everything I needed to make the dragon soar just how I wanted, Lair was still not a very good game. Even using the analog stick, controlling Lair is a nightmare. I could easily go on yet another rant right now on how developers are focusing more on the looks of a game rather than the gameplay. I'm sure you've already heard it though and have a rant of your own brewing as I speak. Needless to say, it's an issue that's present right here. I believe the loose controls of motion sensing mask many more issues in this game's design. The targeting system is crap and you can't choose who you wish to aim at. You can only point your dragon in the general direction and pray for the best. You can't switch between targets. Precise movement around the field is impossible. One of the biggest appeals of an aerial combat game is that once you get the controls down, you can elegantly zip in and out of enemy lines like some kind of ass-kicking hardcore ballerina. Lair, however, contains no elegance even once you master the controls. The camera will flip around and freak out on you, you'll always turn like a wide load truck, and you'll be losing your bearings on the surrounding no matter how hard you try not to. It's these fundamental errors that drive this dragon straight into the ground. I really wanted to enjoy Lair. There were many times where I said to myself that I must obviously understand this game by now, that I finally have the controls down pat, and I'm ready to burn the hell out of some enemies. Yeah, only to be repeatedly slapped in the face with a lame game over due to some sort of poor game design. It was very frustrating, and even when I was playing successfully, I wasn't having very much fun. I kept wishing that I was playing Project Sylphid, which I inevitably learned to control like a dream despite having an even more complex control scheme, and then comparing it to the mess that I was playing right here. Lair has nothing on the greats of this genre. Lair portrays a very epic scale of war, which takes advantage of the next generation hardware tucked away in the PlayStation 3. The lands are vast and the amount of enemies and detail on the screen is staggering. However, the simple fact is that the gameplay is not very fun. Lair at least has moments. Segments of levels where you can dive bomb an enemy headquarters and completely tear shit up. The game hints at fun during these times. Lair's story also has a well thought out background. While the lack in gameplay quality caused me to care very little for it, I can recognize that the effort was indeed there. However, in the end, it's very clear that no matter how many bucket loads of polish you pour over the visuals, it takes very good gameplay to create a rewarding video game experience. Lair has some good efforts and some bizarrely placed locations. I applaud that the developers at least had some sort of ambition. However, all the sympathy in the world can't make a game good. I give Lair on the PlayStation 3 a 4 out of 10.